Okay, so from all the equipment behind me, you can probably tell that I'm currently on tour, but I just wanted to do a video about what makes a good touring guitar rig. It's something I've been working on for years and I've made so many mistakes on the way, so hopefully if you're looking to start gigging on tour, or if you already are touring, but you're still making these mistakes, here's some pointers to not do it. Now firstly, I wanted to say that the things I'm talking about here have been built up from almost a decade of touring now, and so I'm not expecting you to be able to just go out and buy all these things, and you probably don't actually need to. I apologise that the production quality isn't quite as good as obviously my other videos are when I'm in the studio and stuff. I'm basically shooting this on an iPhone with a little mic attached to it by a main road, so yeah, sorry about the background noise. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start with guitars. I mean, I think that's probably pretty obvious that we're talking about a guitaring rig, so the most important thing is probably your guitars. And now I like to play with offset guitars, and typically Fender offsets. I've got a Jazzmaster and a Jaguar, and let's go through them both and I'll explain a little bit about them. Okay, so this is my Fender Jazzmaster. It's actually a USA one, and instead of the normal Jazzmaster tremolo system, it's got a Bigsby on it. And I know you'd think, why would you put Bigsby on it? But I really like it, and it holds its tuning really well. And this here is my Fender Jaguar. Now this is actually a Chinese Fender Jaguar, which I'd never really heard of before, but I bought it online, and this thing sounds really good. Again, it's a bit different that it's a hard tailpiece, and again, it's just basically to stop the strings falling off when I hit them really hard. But this thing sounds great, it's got P90s, it sounds awesome. Now the reason that I take two different guitars out is actually for two different reasons. The first is that the Jaguar is actually darker than the Jazzmaster, so I'll tend to play them depending on the venue. If we turn up to a venue, set everything up and start playing in soundcheck and it's like a really brittle sounding room, I tend to go for the darker guitar, and then if the room's quite dead, then I'll use the blue one, but I do prefer using the blue one anyway, so I will always try and use that one if I can, if it's not too harsh for the room. Okay, so moving on, let's look at pedals. Now this is probably my favourite part of even playing guitar. I absolutely love pedals, and I think probably if you've watched any of the other videos on this channel, you'll know that I love pedals too. And I think guitar pedals really do give you new creativity that you wouldn't have if you were just playing with like an amp gain or something. They're awesome. Now I need something that can be A, portable enough to take around, and if I look in here, my pedalboard is somewhere in there, so it's in a pretty small van, and you don't want to be taking this like absolutely massive pedalboard on the road for A, the van, and also when you get on stage and there's not a lot of room in front of your feet. But then I also wanted something that could do all the jobs I wanted to do in all the songs in the set. So I think I've built a pretty solid board for that. Let's have a look through it. We're going to go through in pedal chain order. This is first my wireless, which actually doubles up as a tuner. And then we've got the Digitech Whammy, which basically gets the special moves added. And this is the Plumes overdrive that stays always on. And then like the first level of distortion, the DS1, and then into the Warlow. And I've actually taken the switch out of it because I kept mashing it. And then here's the small clone chorus into the DD7, which I use on a couple of different settings, reverse and modulation mainly. And then a tuner near the end of the chain, which actually acts as a kill switch as well. And then the Blue Sky for reverb by this Voodoo Labs Pedal Power Plus. So there you go. That, in my opinion, is a solid board that will do everything I need it to do. And I think pretty much in this genre of like alternative or indie sort of shoegazy music, you'd probably get a long way with just that setup, and you could gig it in small, medium, or even big venues, which we actually have on this tour, which has been amazing so far, by the way. Now next up, we're obviously going to need to amplify the guitar somehow, so let's move on to amps. I was actually playing my Dr. Z Maz Jr., which I bought from an awesome band that we supported years ago called Mona, and that thing sounds amazing. I love it. I still use it in the studio. I'm not sure whether I'm actually going to sell it or not, but it's a really, really great amp. But there's one problem. That thing is so heavy. I think it weighs like the best part of 70 kilos in its flight case. It is an absolute beast, and we used to have to lug it up and down stairs all the time, and it was horrific. Basically, we pretty much load all our equipment ourselves, so doing that every single night on not much sleep was an absolute killer. So I decided for this tour that I'd buy something new, something a bit lighter and a bit more practical. So I came across the Marshall Origin 50. I think I'm actually probably going to do its own video, but I think that this is one of the best affordable tube amps out there for this style of music.
So basically it offers you 3 different settings, a low, medium and high, so you can basically attenuate the signal. And then you've got your presence, master, treble, middle, bass, tilt and then gain. And I have mine on the middle setting with the master up a bit and then the gain fairly low. And then I've also bought this Blackstar Amped 1, which is basically acting as a spare amp, and that's essentially set to the same settings as the Marshall. So it's on like the UK, the EL34 tube setting, and then I have it on the 100 watt setting as well.
So obviously I mentioned there the Blackstar Amped 1, the little amp sim that basically is doing what my amp's already doing, and that's being used as a spare. And this brings me on to my 4th and final point, which is spares and extras. Now, like I said before, we've played a lot of gigs over the years, and there's been some amazing gigs and there's been some to nobody. But probably the worst feeling in the world ever is being on stage in front of a busy room and you're playing and then something breaks. And it could be your guitar, your amp, your lead, you have no idea. But then once you work out what that thing is, if you don't have a spare, you're essentially stood there in front of a load of people like a lemon with your guitar broken. And trust me, it's only going to happen once, when you're stood there and you wish that the ground would just swallow you up because you're so embarrassed with everyone looking at you, frantically trying to find a new guitar from someone in the audience or from the support band. So that's why I have spares. Now, I know not everyone can afford to do that, but like I said at the beginning, it's something that we've built up over years. I would say, even if, you've got a Fender, if you could afford like a cheap Squire or something as just a backup, that would be a great shout. So we have a spare guitar, a spare amp, a spare strap, spare leads and cables and kind of all the little like speaker leads and stuff and kettle leads. And finally, I even have a spare big muff pedal, just in case, because really, if I could only have one pedal, it would probably be a fuzz pedal. I hope that this outlines what makes, in my opinion, a really good touring guitar rig that's solid, you've got spares in case anything breaks, and it can do everything that you want it to and still fit in a pretty small van for touring with all of our other equipment too. Is there anything that you think that I've left out? If you do, let me know down in the comments, and then watch this video here next. And until next time, keep on making noises.